Some observations about the cabinet for the Super 6. Someone has put in all new speakers. Um, that's awesome. I'm sure they sound great, all 6 of them. Also, the reverb tank is hanging on the sidewall, which, according to an article I read, is actually the most ideal way to hang one of those, or to mount one of those. But there's not typically enough room to do that. But with this super tall cabinet, there's totally enough room. That, and if you put it on the bottom, you have a really long send and return to the amplifier from the reverb tank. So this is a cool move by Fender to put the reverb tank on the side. Let's take a look at a few other things here. The grill cloth is in kind of rough shape, and it's very loose on this board, and that's because it's a replacement. I don't believe this is the original. You can see it's particle board, so probably not, and it's cut in a very haphazardy kind of way. You know, someone obviously did their best, but we can do better. We'll build a new one of those and install it. Front of the cabinet looks fine. No splitting or any injuries or any of that stuff. One of the things that's got me kind of puzzled, though, is that the mounting bracket here, the straps are set up kind of far back, so that when the amplifier is in here, I don't know if you noticed it from the beginning of the video, but the face is kind of recessed, like kind of a lot, compared to other Supers and even other Super 6s that I've seen. I've only seen one other, but it was flush like it's supposed to be. So I expected when I pulled these straps off to see some other holes here for, you know, maybe somebody had like shifted it back from the position in the front, but these are the original holes. And then also looking at the amplifier chassis, there's just one set of holes. So I think this is how it came from the factory, unless someone had gone through all the trouble to re-tolex it and cover up the original holes. I think, and they filled them in too, because I can't feel any in here. Yeah, so kind of a mystery. The way it looks when it's finished, I'm not digging when it's kind of recessed, you know. So we might figure out a way to move this all forward, if it's not going to be too huge of a pain to cover it over these existing holes, and then have that face flush here. I can see why maybe having it recessed a bit would make sense, because then the knobs are protected, and if this is, you know, getting wheeled around on its side all the time, I could see how damage to the knobs and the faceplate would be really easy. So more on that later. Well, the tolex on top put up a pretty good fight, but I managed to get it removed. I wanted to see if there was any evidence of secondary holes, and it doesn't look like there is. But now that I've got that tolex removed, I can go ahead and put my new holes in where I want them. And then I'll just re-tolex the top here. I'm gonna get out my roll of Fender tolex and see how it looks. If it's just too new looking and weird, then I'll probably end up doing the whole cabinet. But I don't think I have enough on hand to do that, so I'll have to order a bunch more and wait. So yeah, we'll just see what the new tolex looks like compared to the old stuff. As you can see, the new stuff looks pretty obvious compared to the old stuff, so I am going to order a little bit more of this and just redo the whole cabinet. It won't actually take that long. It's just, you know, a lot of work, but I think the end result will be worth it. All right, I'm just working on the cabinet here before I re-tolex it. I've sanded everything, just a real rough sanding, 180 grit, nothing too crazy, just to kind of knock down all the glue a little. make sure it's a nice even surface for me to apply the new glue to, and there's no like debris on there. I'm also filling in with wood filler some of the gaps in the corners and stuff. There was a big smash right here that I'm gonna attempt to fill. We'll see how that works. That might be a little too big for a single go. That might need to be 2 or 3 fillers here. I'm using plastic wood. I was gonna use this guy, but for some reason, this one that I've only had for a couple of months is completely dried out. And this one that I've had for a couple of years is still working. Go figure. Anyway, so yeah, we'll get this all sanded down. I'll touch up a little bit of the paint, like right here where I had to do some sanding. And then we'll apply glue and Tolex and get this thing back into shape. All right, while we're filling holes and sanding, I went ahead and remeasured the points at which we need to mount the chassis through the top. And it looks like we're about a ½ an inch off of where I want to be with the original holes. So the way I figured it is, I went ahead and put in the grill cloth just to kind of see how much of a recess we're going to have. It's about a ¼ of an inch here. So I want everything to be recessed about a ¼ of an inch then, the faceplate that is. So from top of the faceplate here back to the hole on center is 1.5. Okay, so we're gonna call this 1 3/4 then. So we've got our 1.5 plus a ¼ inch recess gap. And then just transferred that back here as well. These are 5 inches on center. Double check that real quick here. So there's that first one. There's the other one, 5 inches on center. So we'll just drill these new holes and then we'll fill the old holes and we should be good to go. So I started Tolexing and I realized that I really didn't include you guys in this process. I just started doing it. And the reason is that I have a video already up on how to Tolex a cabinet. So if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty on this process, you can just check out that video. I'll go over the process really quick here in just sort of a summary type way now that I've got one piece on and kind of catch you up to where I am right now. Basically, you're going to want to take the cabinet and mark in from the side on the top and the bottom about 1.5 inches, okay? Make a nice clean line there. In order to measure the length of this piece of Tolex, you're going to start at the black line that you made, which is underneath here. And with a cloth tape measure or a piece of string, go from here all the way down to the one on the top. Okay, so the 1.5 inches in on the top, 1.5 inches in on the bottom, and then get a total measurement from here to there. That's what you're going to cut this piece to. As far as the width of the piece goes, go ahead and measure the cabinet and then add about 4 inches to that. So 2 inches on either side. More if things are complicated on the inside here. So you can see all I did was come around and wrap this piece. I didn't continue on any further. So just depending on how much extra you're gonna need, add that on to this measurement, the width measurement. And bigger is better than smaller. So if you have too much and you have to cut it away, that's great. Not having enough is a total drag. Cool, so that's how you get the measurements for these side pieces. For the top and the bottom, you're just gonna measure between the outer planks here. So from this point over to this point and cut it at that exact length, okay? So if it's like down to the 16th, go ahead and measure and cut it that way, because this piece is gonna fold over the top of these pieces. They'll be tucked underneath. So it needs to be exactly this width, okay? So the top piece and the bottom piece measure from side to side on the cabinet, and then approximately the same width that you cut this piece at should work just fine. Okay, and then when I'm getting ready to put on the other side, this is technically the bottom because it has the wheels go here. So this is, you know, one side of the cabinet, but kind of the bottom. When I get ready to do the top, I'll stop and show you how to do the corners, how to cut these, cut the tolex so that you have a clean corner here. It's not that big of a deal on this cabinet because there are chrome corner pieces that fit over all of these, but the one at the top does not have a chrome corner piece. So that one's pretty important to get just right. So I'll spend a little time on that. So in a way, you'll get all the information you should need in order to tolex a cabinet, maybe just without the tedium of the previous video. All right, so stay tuned. Okay, for glue, there's a bunch of different kinds that you can use. I've just been using this True Glue from Mojo Tone. It works great, but any water-based glue should work fine. I wouldn't use like Elmer's or anything. This should be something specifically designed to adhere things to wood. The most important thing to know about using this product or similar products is that when you're applying it to your tolex and to your cabinet, you want to do 2 coats and let them dry completely before you try to apply the tolex to the cabinet. Okay, so 2 coats on this, 2 coats on the cabinet, and in between each coat at least 30 minutes. If it's cold, longer. If you are working outdoors, great, get stuff into the sun. Things will dry a lot faster, and you won't have to deal with as many of these wrinkles like I have here working in a cold warehouse. I'm just using a foam brush to apply it and like a red Solo cup or whatever disposable thing you want to use. This will not get cleaned at the end. It'll just get thrown away. Okay, so two coats at least. You can do a third if you're really feeling it. Maybe if the wood that you're attaching it to is super uneven, or if you're just like a little nervous about, you know, the client or the conditions that the cabinet's going to live in. You know, maybe it's going to be at a lot of outdoor hot shows, then maybe that third coat is what you need. 2 should do it. And like I said, this is the product I'm using from Mojo Tone, but there's many others out there that I'm sure are just as good. Make sure though you use 2 coats before you apply your tolex. Okay guys, as promised, I am going to show a little bit of the tolexing here. I've got my cabinet glued and it's ready for the side panel. I did glue all the way down to the bottom, and underneath the cabinet I've put a 2x4 to keep the bottom from touching because I don't want to touch the floor and get all dirty. So now I'm just going to take my piece and start at the top. Always want to start at the top in case it gets a little, in case it drifts a little to the back or the front as it goes down, and then maybe it might make that a little bit of an uneven connection at the bottom. If that happens, then we can cut it off straight. Okay. Just gonna line it up with this center line, or the 1.5 inch line that I've marked, and try to basically get this centered on the cabinet here. So let me bring this camera around, make sure you guys can see how this is going. Yeah, that should work pretty good. There we go, like that. Cool. All right, so find about the center here, and we'll stick it down on the black line that I made, 1.5 inch inset, and then just rub it and make sure it's really on there good before we start to try to adhere it to the side. So I'm basically just gonna pull the material out and then run my hand down to stick it to the cabinet. A little bit of tension, not too much. I wanna make sure that I get it stuck around this rounded edge first before I try to go all the way down. And then just if there's any little weird spots on the way down, just make sure to work them out. before you proceed. All right, there we go. Cool. Okay, it did drift a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and try that again. And because the glue is completely dry, it allows me to pull it back off like that without creating a giant mess. So we're gonna try this again. I'm gonna scoot this over just a little bit. There we go, a little bit more towards the front. Looks like maybe my cut isn't super straight. There we go, okay. Got a little bit of material stuck underneath here. Just pull that out real quick. There we go. Okay, looks good. And we'll try that again. Making sure that rounded edge is nice and tight. And then we'll rub down. Okay, I've laid the cabinet over on its side. Now I've run the tolex smooth along the length here. Now I'm going to start to wrap it. I just want to make sure I have good contact on this beveled edge on the front and back. After I get that where I want it, I'll go ahead and put it up on the table and we'll do the corners. Now with this top edge, it's a little tricky because there's that cut back that comes up to the top of the cabinet here. So you just want to kind of pull it tight around that. We're not going to make any cuts here. All the cuts are going to be done at the top. So we just want this to be kind of nice and smooth over there. And then we'll do the same on the back. Just pulling it down and smoothing it. Hand, make sure it's nice and tight, and then any other weird little spots, just get it worked out. If you have a bubble or something in here, don't sweat it. You can always come back over that area with a heat gun, very lightly with a heat gun to get it loosened up, get the glue loosened up, and then you can smush it down. Okay, let's put it on the table and we'll do the corners. Okay, we're up on the table now, and hopefully this camera angle is going to work so that you can see how I do the corners here. This is the top of the cabinet with the beveled edge. So we're going to do this one first. It's the hardest of the corners to do, but you only have to do it twice. So there's that. Let me just find my razor blade here. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of lay this flat against the cabinet. Oh, actually, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back very gently and then fold this down this way. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to make a cut. I'm going to go from this corner where everything's kind of bunched together at like about a 45 out to there, just where the end of this tolex intersects with the side or the inside of the cabinet here. So just like that. Then I'm going to carefully unwrap this guy and pull it back up. And I might need to cut back just a little bit further here, it looks like. So just cut in, following that same angle. Just cut back in a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to lay this over the top of the piece. So I'm going to make another cut now from that same point going straight out. Okay, and I'm cutting through 2 layers now, so I need to push a little harder. This top layer and then also the layer underneath it, obviously. Okay, so here we go. Kind of smush this corner together so I can see where to start. Just straight out. There we go. We don't have to go far enough to, when I pull this back, be able to remove this bottom layer. Oh, it didn't quite cut through. I think it's time for a new razor blade. So I'll just go ahead and make that cut again here. There we go. Okay. Let's see how we did. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna make that cut one more time with a fresh razor blade. It's totally good. Okay, and I can just get this out of the way. Don't need that. Okay, so I still have these overlap just a tiny bit. And we'll make this cut one more time. There we go. Okay, cool. Can pull off this last little bit here. There it goes. Nice. Okay. Now I'm gonna fold this back over and make sure I have good contact between the 2 sections. There we go. And just like with the bubbles, if you have them, if this isn't quite making contact or you need a little more mobility, you can always hit this with the heat gun just a little bit to loosen it up. Okay, I'm liking that. It's pretty good. Need to deal with this little guy here. So we're just going to, oops, sorry, I hit the camera with my hat. We're just gonna cut back a little bit here. There it goes. Take that out. There we go. Okay. And then we're gonna hit that with the heat gun to get rid of that little extra bit. Okay, so now we're gonna do the cut back. We're just basically gonna cut straight back along the inside of the frame here of the speaker cabinet. We don't need all of this stuff here, so let's kind of start. Hopefully you can see this all right. Let's start here and just cut straight back. There we go, like that. Cool. And then I'm gonna make a cut going this way, right along that 1.5 inch line to get rid of that piece. Okay. Now this one's a little tricky. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. I want to estimate where the center of this transition is and make a cut straight out and away. And I want to do it on the inside of the frame of the box. So I'll typically fold it over just a little bit and then put the blade in to make that cut, and then just straight out and away as best you can there. Okay. Now I'm going to take this piece and we're going to stick it down on the inside. And the best way to do that is to kind of take it and roll it like this against the inside of the cabinet as you go down. And then I'm going to make another cut back here on the top edge, just like that. And then I'll push this past and I'll deal with the excess later. Okay, so that's all we're going to do on this corner for now. We're going to do the bottom corner real quick, and then we'll tuck in all of the stuff along the edge. Okay, here we are in the bottom corner. So first thing we're going to do is lay this out flat, and we'll do our cut back just along the inside of the speaker cabinet till we get to the corner and then we'll stop. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, now we're going to carefully unfold this. We really don't want to tear it right here. So we're just very carefully gonna pull that back until we can lay this piece flat, going up that way. Now we're gonna make that same 45 cut. Okay, this time it's coming from here to there. So I'm just gonna lay the razor in here, and I'm gonna do it with my left hand because it's just easier in this position. There we go. Peel this back, lay it flat the other way, like so. Okay, now I'm going to make my straight cut, straight out from where I started the 45 along that beveled edge. So about like that. Got a little extra there. Okay. Now I can remove this material from underneath. Sometimes you might have to cut a little bit of the corner away, like that. And then we're going to lay this back down and make sure we're lined up. That looks good. Have a nice tight seam there. We do have a little bit of extra material here at the corner. I'm sure you can see that. There you go. So I'm just going to cut that back. This is going to be underneath one of those chrome plated corner brackets, but we still want it to look good. So I'm just going to kind of fold these over each other until they stick together, and then carefully cut back like that. Don't want to do it too far, or else you can't stick them together on the corner. There we go. Cool. So I'll go ahead and hit that with the heat gun so I can close this up. And I'll show you how to do that. That'll be a good little practice. Okay. This looks good here. We're just gonna do one more cut back like that. And then we will, we will finish this cut on the inside. So we're just gonna line this up with that edge and roll it like that. Didn't quite get it all the way. There we go. Okay, so let me get the heat gun and we'll fix that real quick. All right, getting this edge locked in is pretty simple. We're just gonna start in the middle and we're gonna roll it and stick it as we go along. And once we get it most of the way down, that's when we're gonna grab our scraper or trowel or whatever you've got with an edge on it to help us secure that innermost corner. Okay, so we're just gonna take our guy. Don't use one that's too sharp or you'll cut through the tolex. We're just gonna use this to push it down into that corner. Cool. And I'll run this along here all the way, just to make sure. Cool. Once we've got that, then we'll take our razor blade and run it down the inside corner and cut off the excess. There we go. All right, I'm gonna bring you in for a close-up on this little bit here, so we can cut that. All right, we've got some material that's overlapping here, so we just need to make a single cut and then pull away the excess from underneath. So what I'm gonna do is cut straight back from here up to the top like that. Take that guy off. And then I'm going to remove this material that's underneath. Like that. And then stick this back down. Making sure I have a nice seam right there. Kind of goes away. Perfect. Great. All right, the last thing to do for this top part is to cut away this inside piece, but I'll do that from the back because it's just a lot easier. Now we're gonna flip it over and do the other two corners. Guys, I'm getting ready to stick the bottom section on here. I've got the glue applied and it's just drying. I thought I would mention, because these layers are gonna overlap, you can go ahead and put glue, obviously, on the outside of this tolex because you're gonna stick some tolex on top of it. And I apologize for all the loud drumming and trains going by and stuff, but you know, it is a warehouse. And you don't have to be too careful about over applying the glue. When this stuff dries, it's fairly easy to just wipe off with your fingers. It just kind of rolls up like rubber cement and comes away, and the stuff that's really stuck on there good, just a little bit of water, like on a paper towel, will get it off really easy. So don't be afraid to lay it on pretty thick here. I'm actually going to come back and take some of this off, but if it gets outside of the area that you're trying to stick, don't worry about it. It will come off fairly easy, and it's not a big deal. Okay, time to stick on the bottom piece. You'll notice I've got the cabinet on its side here. This is just the way that I do it. It's the easiest for me to get this tolex lined up where I want it. You can do it on its back or face down and try to kind of come this way with it, but I just find it easier to go from left to right, or from right to left, and then smooth it down. So I've got my piece of tolex here. I'm gonna line it up about in the center. From left to right, I'm gonna start here and just make sure that the edge of it is just underneath the inside edge of the speaker box. And then I'm gonna come around back side until I get it where I want it. Looks good there. Then I'll stick it down at the top. And you can see all of that excess glue that was on there is just wiping right off. Cool. And I'll peel up the middle section and I'll smooth it down. I've got a little bit of tension on here, not too much. I don't want to stretch this out. It's cut to the right size. I just want to make sure it sticks well. There we go. That looks pretty good. Work out any weird little bumps that are in here. Cool, cool. All right, and then I'm gonna double check where I wanna be here. It's better if it's a little too long than too short. So that part looks good, this part looks good. Once we've got it basically stuck, then I'll tip it over onto its back or front, and we'll lay in the inside piece. This is probably the easiest part of doing a tolex job. Now that we've got this where we want it, we're just gonna roll it back a little bit and make sure that we pull it tight over this beveled edge. And we're working it down with our thumb as we come along. And then we'll do just like we did on the sides. We're gonna fold it over on itself in order to get it to stick to the inside. We'll do that a couple of times. Get it worked down to the bottom, and then we'll come back in with our scraper. Might need to clean up a little bit on this edge here because we've got a little too much material. Like I said, it's better to have too much here than not enough. There we go. Okay. Just grab our razor blade and we'll cut away this excess. And then we'll do the same thing on the back side. I have all the tolex back on. Also the wheel mounts and new handles, as well as new corners on the bottom. Thought it would be kind of weird to put the old rusted corners and handles back on. So I got new ones of those, and I have new amp straps for the top once we're ready for final assembly. Now I'm going to move on to the grill and the grill cloth. Get that put together. I'll show you how to do that real quick, and then we'll do a little more cleanup here and reassemble the finished amp. Well, I thought I'd pause in the middle of constructing this grill cloth backing board to talk about how I'm making it. This is just a piece of 1/2-inch plywood. It's not super nice. It's just what I had laying around, but it should be a little better than the OSB that they made the first one out of. So I've transferred all my lines on here to line up with the speaker cabinet. You can see we're going to have 2 braces in the center, these 2 guys, and then 2-inch frame all the way around for support. I'm putting in my holes so that I can jigsaw between them. You'll notice that I'm using a Forstner bit to do that. Let me show you what that looks like. That's one of these guys. It just makes the corners a lot nicer. It gives you a place to start from. You could use like a paddle bit as well if you wanted to. These tend to leave just kind of a messier hole, and you end up having to clean up more stuff. So Forstner bit is what I like to use to do the corners, so they'll be nice and round right here. I'm just gonna go diagonal across here. This is a space for the nameplate to go. It'll actually be on the left-hand side of the cabinet because we're working on the back of the piece of wood right here. So I'll just put the rest of my Forstner holes in here, and then we're gonna connect the dots using a jigsaw. The best way to cut this plywood so that you end up with nice straight lines is to use, I find, a circular saw, and then I use a brace to run it against. So for example, on this piece here, this cut, I measured back 1 1/4 inch from the edge, and then clamped this guy here and ran my saw along it. Your saw may have a little bit different fence rail, but all I need to do is just, once you've got your blade depth adjusted, measure in from here and see where you are. This one is 1 1/4 inch. Another saw that I have is 1 1/2 inch. It just kind of depends. And these are handy. So you just toss the rail down on the mark and clamp it, and then run the saw right along the side of the angle piece, and it'll help you make a nice straight line. I'll do the same thing in here for the jigsaw. So I can just run the jigsaw right against this same piece, and I won't have to worry about slipping off of that line. All right, here is my grill board, my grill cloth board, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna put some flat black paint on it here so that you can't see it through the grill cloth. Make sure you use flat black, don't use gloss, because that'll shine through. And I did sand it down, not too aggressively, just 180, a couple passes, a couple pieces of paper. And so now we'll paint it. All right, let's do the grill cloth. So I've got my piece laid out here and trimmed. Leave about inch and a half on either side. You want to have enough that you can roll over and comfortably be able to staple. We are going to add a little tension to this as we go along, but not a ton, okay? So step one, make sure your black lines are going horizontal. Otherwise it'll look really weird. And then position your frame so that it lines up with one of these black lines along the bottom or the top. Pull over the center and staple it down. I want a little bit of tension here, but on the very first one, we're just looking to get it secure, okay? Then go to the opposite end and do the same thing, pulling it and making it a little tight just to make sure it's secure. Then we're gonna go to the sides and do the same thing. So we're just doing the middle here, one on each side. And then for the longest side, we're gonna do the next two. So not quite all the way down in the corner, just somewhere, you know, 2/3 of the way down. And I'm looking at the stitching on here, and I wanna make sure that I have a straight line of stitch along this edge here. And I'm pulling it to the same point, okay? And then we'll do the same thing on the other long side, and then we'll just continue. Then next we'll do the top and the bottom, 2/3 of the way in here, 2/3 of the way in there, and then over there and over there. And then I'll flip over the screen to make sure that the grill cloth is nice and even and there's no wavy lines in it or anything. Once I've got that established, then I can go ahead and put in all of the rest of the staples. And there's gonna be basically one right after the other all the way around. So a whole bunch of staples. Don't hold back on the staples. Also, if you have the wherewithal to get one of these pneumatic staplers, I highly recommend it. It saves a lot of squeezing on your hands and makes this go a lot quicker. All right, so I'm gonna keep putting more staples in and I'll show you how it turned out. All right, so I got the majority of the staples in. I'm leaving the corners for last. Now that I've got my grill cloth on here, it's pretty straight, I'm liking it. Even if you're very careful, you might still end up with a little bit of variation. If that's the case, then it's probably worth it to just kind of go over the whole thing with your hand, a little light pressure to get this weave to even out. Sometimes that's all you need in order to get everything to line back up, but this is looking good enough for me. So I'm gonna keep on going. We're gonna do the corners now, so let me get that set up. Okay, the corners can be a little tricky. Especially when you've got a situation like this where I don't have a ton of material to work with on this. I guess it'll be the bottom. So I want to do this piece first. Okay, so this is the horizontal, the width piece, and then once I get this all stapled down, I'll bring this over the top. And the only thing you want to make sure of is that, like, when you get this folded over and stapled, that you get at least one staple that goes through both layers before you trim anything off. Okay, we're gonna make sure it's nice and secure before that happens. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. You'll notice I just split the difference, or the distance, between the last staple and the next staple, and then I'll go back and put one in there. And then I'll do the same thing here. We'll go right on the corner. Yeah, I really wish I'd left myself a little more material there, but that's just enough. And then we'll go back halfway and sink that guy in. Maybe one more here for good measure. Okay, that looks good. So like I said, we're gonna fold this over before we cut any material away, okay? So I'm kind of pulling down a little bit too as I'm rolling over to make sure I've got the same amount of tension on the outside edge of this as I do with the inside. Go about halfway, staple, pull it over, go right to the corner, staple, go one more. Make sure that last one there got both layers the way I wanted. Okay, and then we'll come back in here, halfway in between these staples, halfway in between those staples. Great. So that looks pretty good there. Let me grab my scissors and we'll trim this. Okay, I'm gonna put one more staple in here going the other direction. Perfect. And then I'm just gonna cut this like that. And then I'll trim this little tiny edge here. And I wanna be careful not to cut too far this way because I don't wanna be able to see the wood underneath here in the corner. So I'm gonna leave, as you can see, just a little bit of fluff hanging out there. And then I can trim off this excess stuff. I don't have to deal with it later. Cool, we'll just do the other 4 corners like that and then we'll be done. Well, as you can see, I think the tolex and grill cloth turned out very nice. The overall appearance of the amp is great. With the new hardware and everything, you know, the amp basically looks brand new off the showroom floor. I'm real happy with the way that this turned out, and I hope that this amplifier finds a new home and a new owner that's gonna really enjoy it. It's just so large and amazing sounding that I can't hold on to it. I'm gonna have to send it out into the world so that it can have its next chapter. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video of redoing the Super 6 Reverb from Fender. If you did enjoy it, please like and follow this page so you can see more videos in the future. I'm sure I'll have a lot of fun projects coming up, and stay tuned.